everybody, coming at you from out in the wilderness. And I got Nick on the camera.
Hello.
Alright, so today we're going to talk about a sleep system that's called the Ranger Roll or the Ranger Taco. And it's a field expedient sleep system that's used by the military. And I guess it's called the Ranger Roll because the Army Rangers came up with it. Now, I wasn't in the military, but I've read about this system, been told about this system, and used this system. And even though it's a field expedient system, it's still pretty handy, pretty nice. And some people don't understand it, and some people don't understand the ins and the outs. So I'm going to explain all the options of it, how it goes together, what you use, and the advantages of it compared to a sleeping bag. So, we ready to go, Nick?
Yes.
All right. Let's get to diving into this subject. All right, let's get this stuff out here and talk about it for a minute. Now, the Ranger Roll, or Ranger Taco, as it is sometimes called, what it is, that is a typical Ranger Roll, okay? This is a digital camo. This is the way they typically look. This is the way people typically put them together. This is the one that I've made my modifications into, that I think that if you use this, you may not like it. You use this, you'll like it. So, let's dive in here. This is a sleeping bag, all right? See the size? Okay. Not that much difference in size. This may be a little bit smaller. If you get a more expensive sleeping bag, it'll definitely be smaller and lighter. This is somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 pounds. This is around 3 pounds. But this will do a whole lot more than this, so suck up, cupcake, and all the extra pounds. Alright, now, this sleeping bag is supposed to be rated for good down to 50 Fahrenheit. This, people claim, goes down to 45 Fahrenheit, but that's more like a survivability factor. It'll keep you alive. You won't freeze to death. For actual comfort, this system by itself, to me, is around 55 degrees. Okay, but you can up that by another 10 to 15 degrees by carrying another 2.5 pounds of equipment here that can make it really comfortable. All right, so when you're looking at this, this is a sleeping bag. Okay, what do you do with a sleeping bag? Take a sleeping bag, and generally you sleep inside a tent, or you lay a tarp.
You do? Oh, I thought you slept on the tent.
No, that's not how we do it in Georgia. But anyway, if you've got a sleeping bag, all right, all this is insulation. All right. Now, if you lay on the ground where the leaves are and things, you can't just pull this out and sleep on it. Some people may try, but you need a bivy sack to cover this, or you need to be in a tent, or you need to be on a tarp. All right. Now, this is all insulation. It's all cloth. When you lay on a bag like this, you're going to crush the insulation. So you've got to have some sort of a pad underneath you, or you'll get a cold back. All right. Now, this, the Ranger Roll or Ranger Taco, okay, is a combination of a poncho, which is your rain gear, and a poncho liner, and a casualty blanket, or as us civilians call it, a survival blanket. It's a reflective blanket. So let's dig into here. I'm going to roll it out. What you want to do is you want to find a reasonably nice clear spot, preferably with leaves or pine straw, and you want to pick up all the little sticks around here. Now, if you want to with a Ranger Roll, you can just lay it right on the ground, you're good to go. Or what you can do is you can lay out a tarp either under you or over you. But with this, you ain't got to worry about the moisture coming up out of the ground. So let's unroll this jewel and take a look at it. You got a nice clear area here, and preferably you want a bunch of leaves and pine straw. And if you don't have a bunch of them, you know, seek out a place, or maybe even a place like, see where all that grass is over there? Lay it on the grass if you want to. But
yeah.
Not in the summertime.
Yeah, but instead we're going to put it on this spot with some bare dirt. Yep.
Well, Okay, Nick. Let's get past the details. All right, now the way this thing is right here is however you want to secure it. A lot of the Rangers would secure it with paracord, but I just use Fastex buckles because this is what I use for all my tarps and things. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll this thing out, and I'm going to show you, this is just what one typically looks like. All right. Now the way they do it normally, or the way a lot of people do it, one of the biggest mistakes that I see is what they do. Now the way you're supposed to do it, I haven't snapped all this thing together, but what they do is they take and they lay everything out like this. Alright, they lay everything out, and what you have, this is not very thick insulation, this is thin insulation, but the thing is you have this reflective tarp sandwiched in between you and the poncho. Okay. Now, the thing is about this reflective material, which is, this is a all-weather grabber blanket. This is usually what civilians use. The casualty blankets used by the military are pretty expensive, but they're a lot more heavy-duty. But this will work in a pinch. But the way this thing works here is the closer you get this to your body, the more it reflects your heat back. And so, but if it touches you, you'll sweat. And that's the thing. Now, there's a lot of people boo-hooing and crying and saying, oh, you'll sweat in that. Well, the thing is, if it's warm enough that this system makes you sweat, then you don't need to sleep in this system. You just need to wrap up in a blanket, okay? The way this is if it's reasonably cold, and if you're laying straight on the ground without a pad, this will actually reflect your body heat back. And if there's any kind of sweat, it'll get absorbed in the blanket. Okay. Now, normally the way they do this thing is they lay everything out. This is what I've seen a lot of people do. And these poncho liners, oh, and incidentally, the reason they call this a poncho liner is because it's made to line a poncho right here. Okay. And it's made to line it for sleep system. It's not necessarily made for you to wear under your poncho, because I hear millions of people all the time saying that whenever they buy these or order these, they say there's no hole for the head. Well, they weren't designed for that. It's more of a blanket. It's not necessarily meant to line a poncho when you're wearing a poncho. It's meant to line it when it's laying on the ground like a sleep system. All right, so I wanted to make that clear. But these do come with they look like green shoelaces, and they're at each corner and in the middle, which to me is not enough. Now, the way people normally do these is they fold it over and they tie those off. Now, the problem with that is you got a gap in here of about 3 feet that air can get in. Makes it even worse when you're folding everything over from the same side, like that. All right. And then the final thing is you fold this over. And these have snaps on them, and so what you want to do is you want to snap all this together. You snap these together just like that. Alright? Now, with this, you've got all of these gaps over on this side, which isn't good. And you've got distance between the snaps, which isn't good. Okay? And then you'll want to tie off the hood. Now, this is the typical way people set them up. I'm going to show you how I've set mine up. Now, one other thing that I wanted to mention too is if you're on any kind of an incline, always make sure and have your head at the higher end, always, and your feet at the lower end. Because if you slept the other way around with your head at this end, all the blood would rush to your head and you'd have a headache like you ain't never believed. Alright, so now this is my version of the Ranger roll. It's not that different, but there is some differences. And I'm going to show you, so, because a lot of people complain, I've heard people complain about the Ranger roll, and they're like, why would you want to use that? It's not comfortable. Well, if you set it up properly, it will be comfortable, okay? And the other advantage is like I said, with a sleeping bag, all it is a sleeping bag. It's just a bag full of insulation. There's no protection from rain or moisture or snow or whatever. And the thing about this is when you have the waterproof poncho on the outside and the tarp, you've got protection. You can either lay on the ground, or the real beauty is you can dissect this, and you've got rain wire to protect you and your pack, and then you've got a tarp in here that you can use for overhead protection, for if you don't want to use it as a sleep system. So like, you know, if it's cold, lay on the ground and use this. If it's raining and kind of warm, then you can just set up this on the ground as your tarp, and then set up the poncho as your roof, and then just wrap up in a blanket and lean against a tree or lay under your tarp or something. So these are multi-use items, and that's one of the really cool things about them. Okay, so let's lay this on the ground, and I'm going to show you real quick. Oh, first I'm going to show you how to get in it. Now let's see. I think. All right. Let's roll this over. Now see, mine's kind of a neater system. Okay, now I've got it backwards. Put this like this. Just like that. Now see, I've got this thing snapped. I've got this thing snapped on the sides. And like right here, I should have put paracord on this, and I don't know why it's not on there. But I've got paracord on the end that kind of seals it off. Now, I got to show you how to get into this thing. This here should have been tied off. Alright, now I'm going to show you how to get into this thing. Now, I was fixing to say there's going to be a lot of people boo-hooing and crying about being able to get into it. And to me, if you can't get into this thing, you shouldn't be out hiking and camping. Okay.
That's nice.
That's nice. Okay, so let me take this thing off right here, and I'm going to show you exactly, because I'm going to dissect this thing. I'm going to take it apart and show it to you before I crawl in. Alright. Let's see. Because the way I've made it, normally if you have those layers, some people will tie off one side and fold it over and get in it and fold it over and tie it off. But if you do that, you've got those big gaps on the end, and if you don't tie off when you wake up, it's just going to be a big mess. So the way you do this,
Well, it doesn't matter what I'm sleeping in. It's always a big mess afterwards.
that's right. Now what I do is I'll put my knee on one end just like that. Alright. Take your boot off. Alright. Take your other boot off. And you want to pull your boots inside with you. You don't want to leave them out like this. And then you're standing on it. Then, what you want to do is pick it up and walk forward until you get to about here. Okay? Now when you've walked forward with it like this, then you just want to fall back or sit down. Just like that. And now at this point, you're pretty much good to go.
Oh, I thought you were going to play hopscotch.
No. And then what you want to do is you want to put your boots on either side of you. Just like that. Or you can pull them inside you later. Actually, those are kind of tight right now. I'll do that in a minute. You want to make sure that you got all 3 layers above you and all 3 layers below you. Put your hands in, and then just scoot yourself in. Scoot yourself in until you put your elbows down, and then scoot you in. Now, I hope your boots ain't going to be all muddy, but if they are, you can either bring them inside. Now sometimes if you've got the right boots, you can bring them inside and put them above your head. That way this is held up off of you. See? Pull your boots in and put them in above your head, just like that. Okay? Or you can lay them underneath right here, depending on if it's raining or not. If it's dry outside, you ain't got to worry about rain. You can lay your old filthy boots right there. Use them as a pillow. Now that's pretty extreme right there, but that's just some of the things that I've learned over the years. Either use the boots as a pillow, use your pack as a pillow, or pull them in. But that's basically how you crawl inside. Now to get out of this thing,
You know, I want to make a joke around this, but I think it's pretty funny by itself.
well, the thing is, you've got all these layers, and these layers will protect you. And like I said, if it's about 65 degrees or more, you don't want to sleep this way because there's a possibility you could sweat. It depends on if you're a light sleeper or not. So now the way to get out of this thing without destroying it is that you want to get up on your feet. Wasn't that a song, Nick? Get on up. And then you just want to walk backwards and lay it down. You don't crawl into it, you walk into it. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to dissect this thing. And I'm going to show you the modifications that I've made to this thing. Alright?
Cool.
Saying there's a higher temperatures, you don't want to sleep this way. Because one, you may sweat inside it, and two, you don't want to be laying directly on the ground in the higher temperatures because that's when all the bugs and spiders and scorpions will be active. So this is for like 65 and below. Now, between like 50 and 65, this is perfect. Between 45 and 55, depending on the clothes, you may get cold. Now, this is a little comfort pack. This is 2.5 pounds. This will get you down to freezing temperature with this thing, okay? And so what's in here, I think there's really no reason to demonstrate all this, but what's in here is this is a Rakaya Designs. Is that how you pronounce it?
Sure.
Okay. Well, anyway, what this is a very, very small inflatable pad, and it's an inflatable air pad. Okay. Now, this is something I found on Amazon. It was only $37, and so what you can do is if you blow this up, this will give you a little bit more padding, a little bit more comfort for your backside. But the thing is when you blow this up, this is not insulated. When you blow this up, what you got to do is you got to slide it. Okay, you've got poncho, grabber blanket, poncho liner, grabber blanket, poncho liner. What you want to do is you want to slide it in between the poncho liner and the casualty blanket or survival blanket, because that way what you're going to be doing is the cold from the ground won't be able to go through the air pad through this. Now the cold may go through the poncho, but it ain't going to go through this reflective part. So that's what you want to do is you want to blow this up and you'll want to slide it in between these layers all the way down. All right. Now that is if you have your Ranger roll already rolled up, laid out, and put together. Okay. So that'll boost it up a little bit. And then the other thing, the same company made a little pillow for $11 because there's only certain times you can use your boots as a pillow. All right. And if it's going to rain anyway, you need to have an extra tarp to hang overhead, I feel like. But anyway, that was only $11 on Amazon, so it's a neat little bitty tiny pillow right there that you blow up. There's no reason to blow that up because people have seen that kind of stuff before. But anyway, those were cheap, and I took a chance on them because I was like, you know, I've got some other stuff. I've got like some Climate and some Alps Engineering air pads. But I kind of wanted something cheap that I could just leave with my Ranger roll, and those fit the bill pretty good. Then you'll want an extra poncho liner.
Wow, 2 for the price of 1.
Wow! Now, depending on how cold it is, if it's like fall, I'll carry this in an extra pouch. But if it's winter time, I'll go ahead and I'll roll it up in my Ranger roll. Now, the thing about this is when you have this, you can either put it in here and it's a full set of insulation, or before you get in, You can wrap it around your chest to keep your organs cold. Or if you do like me, I literally will wrap this thing around my feet and then shimmy in because my feet get very cold. But it pays to have an extra blanket like that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dissect this Ranger roll real quick, or Ranger taco, and I'm going to show you modifications I did to it. Oh, the nickname for this is the poncho liner. It's called a whoopee. Nick, do you remember what I said about a whoopee? And how
No.
it got its nickname?
No, but I definitely like to hear.
Because they say that without it, you will be cold. I didn't make it up, I'm just repeating it. Alright, let's dissect this thing. Now, what I have done here is there's an eyelet or a grommet right here, and I've tied it off with paracord. Alright, so that the end is closed up. Now I put it on with I leave the paracord on this eyelet with a lark's head knot. That way I know that I've always got the paracord on there. Alright. So there's that. And then this poncho has got snaps on it. Just like that. It's got the dual snaps. This is one of the older ponchos. It's got the kind of snaps where you can either snap two ponchos together to make a shelter or a hooch out of, or you can snap it together to use it for the roll. You got to be careful about that because some of the aftermarket ponchos, they don't have those snaps that way. So what we're going to do is we're going to snap it. Now, if you'll notice, the opening is on this side. All right, pay attention to that. So let's unsnap it all the way up. Now, normally, I don't know why the paracord is not on here, because normally I've got paracord on here with the lark's head, but it's not on there, and I don't know why. All right, so once this is unsnapped, now this is what you got to pay attention to, is the fold. Instead of laying everything flat and folding it over like a taco, what I always do is I alternate layers. See how that's folded over? I've got a full fold here on this side. That way there's no way air can come in. Now on this side, what I've done is I've done the same thing, and I've got small bits and pieces of paracord. Now it's not necessarily as important to have that tied off, but it's definitely important to have this tied off. And same thing with these little eyelets. I've got paracord on with a lark's head. And I just tie it with just a regular old, just like you'd tie your shoestrings. See, and I got paracord there, quick pull, and it comes apart. Now, these blankets here, these grabber blankets, I don't know about the real deal USGI casualty blankets, but with these grabber blankets, they only have the eyelets at each corner. So you have to add extra eyelets to be able to get this to seal off. So now that we've got this undone, like I say, I leave, and see another thing about that is if you've got this paracord tied off on these grommets, you can hook your bungee cords to this if you want to make this into a tarp roof. Now, pull this over, and as you'll see, this thing right here, now sometimes this wads up, and one of the reasons that people will lay them flat and fold them all over is so that they can tie everything together and it won't wad up. But the problem with that is you've got these big openings on one side. So as usual, I had my edge over here, and now I have this part. Now, this is kind of an important part right here. The way I've got this paracord. This is the factory cord here. Okay, they put this cord on there on the ends and the middle. Now, if you just tie it off here, you're going to have a section this wide where it's not tied in. So you have to sew on paracord or shoelaces. Now I'm going to show you something about sewing on this paracord here in a minute. But anyway, that's basically the modifications I've done. And I got a little tip on the paracord there. Let's just get this all undone here. Okay, and then I've got one that I've added to the end right there, all right? And so there's your blanket, there's your poncho liner. Alternate layers. Now let me show you something here. Oh. From the factory, this is going to take a minute to show. Okay, from the factory, can you see that pretty good?
Yeah.
All right, what that is that's like some green shoelaces, and they've got them at each corner. See how they're sewn? Now to add them, what you do, it is almost impossible to sew paracord straight to a blanket. So what I do, this is just, when you have an inner and outer, it's called kern mantle. One's the kern, one's the mantle. I think the outside's called the mantle or the sheath. But what I do is when I cut it, I remove the 5 inner strands, so this is just a flat sheath. Now, yeah, you lose the 550 pounds of strength, but you're only tying up a blanket. And that makes it to where it's easy to sew it on. That's one of the huge questions I'm always asked when I talk about adding cordage to a whoopee. So that's how you modify your whoopee. You add all these things. Because, like I say, from this end to this end, you've got the shoelaces. So you've got that big of a gap where there's nothing there. And right in the middle is where I add the paracord. I've done that for years, removed the inner strands, seal the ends up with a lighter, sew it on. I've never had an issue with it. So that is the Ranger roll.
Cool.
All right, so that is the Ranger Roll Ranger Taco sleep system. All right, it's a very handy, just as good as a sleeping bag, if not 3 times the use, because there's multi-uses in the items. And hope you enjoyed that. This really wasn't meant to be like a typical entertaining video, more of an informational type video, because I do get asked questions about this stuff before, and when you look online, there's really not that much information about the setup. I guess because people think there's not that big of a deal to talk about it. They just bring a sleeping bag. But this system will do a lot more. Your options are more available, and the more multi-use gear that you can carry is great, because you're camping, you're backpacking, you're hiking, that's wonderful, but at any time, if it turns into a survival type situation, you want your gear to be multi-use, all right? So, anything you want to add, Nick?
Yeah, I'd probably take a Ranger roll over a regular sleeping bag just to save pack space.
Yeah, that's true. You can compress it down a whole lot more. And
yeah.
All that insulation on the bottom of that sleeping bag is going to get compressed anyway. It doesn't matter. So I would rather go ahead and come with less insulation and have a reflective layer under it, making my body heat come back to me through the insulation. You don't have any kind of reflective qualities with a sleeping bag. It's all insulation. And you're going to crush it when you lay on it.
Also, you can break it apart if you need the poncho off of it.
Absolutely.
Or maybe you need to take the tarp off.
And how many
You've
times
got other options for making shelter.
How many times has the weather report been wrong and we've got stuck in the rain or snow?
A lot.
Yeah, you want that poncho. So much better than a rain jacket, because you put the poncho over you and your whole backpack, which is great. So, hope you had fun. Hope you enjoyed it. Get out, enjoy life. What's that saying, Nick? What'd you tell me? Don't be a cupcake.
Yeah.
I love that saying. All right, and we shall see you in the next one.
See you later.